Hey everyone, so I'm going to take a little bit of a different stance than everyone else. I think most of the talks today are going to be about how DAOs are so amazing and they're the future and we all love them, and I'm going to talk about all the ways in which they suck. I think we need way more of that. I think we need way more honest conversations around how they need to improve. That's not to say things aren't improving. There are, the sponsors here. I met Dimitri earlier from Dexy, the things Tally is doing. They're improving, but if we're really honest about things, like, they're not great at the moment. So a little bit about me. I'm Azeem. I'm the head of impact at Gitcoin. It's just a really fancy term that means that I lead business development, partnerships, and sales for a Gitcoin DAO. Gitcoin DAO has 5 separate products and offerings. That means if you message me on Telegram, I have a lot of Telegram debt for trying to manage 5 separate products and offerings. With that said, what is Gitcoin for anyone in the room who may not know? So Gitcoin was founded in 2017. The initial goal of it was, taking the ability to get open source software developers actually paid. So taking GitHub and coins is really where the name came from, Git and coins, for bounties that were placed on the platform originally. In 2019, after Vitalik, Glenn Whale, and Zoe and Sig helped create the idea of quadratic funding, we moved into doing quadratic funding grants rounds for builders in the ecosystem who were putting together some amazing things, but perhaps they were a little bit too early to be able to get angel money, venture capital, or anything like that. But this was money to help them sort of just like get going. And since then, we have distributed over $57 million to date to organizations in the ecosystem. Bankless is one of them. Many of the most successful projects in the Ethereum ecosystem were at one point grantees of ours. Uniswap, Optimism, Gnosis, Yearn, Bankless, MakerDAO, Wallet Connect, OAuth, Ether.js, like I could literally just keep going. And so we've been a pretty integral piece of the ecosystem. I'm always very proud to be able to say that I help work here because of the help that we get to provide to the amazing builders who are doing great things here. But with that, I also get way more intimate knowledge about sort of what's going on in the ecosystem from a 10,000-foot perspective that you might not necessarily be able to if you're more in the weeds and within DeFi or within NFTs or any of those other parts of the ecosystem. Just a little bit more, when we first started our grants rounds, we distributed about 0.7 million in 2019. That number was 3,000% higher in 2022. At the end of 2023, we'll see what those numbers are. Again, just very proud to be able to do the work that we get to. But let's get into why this sucks. I've spent almost 2 years in this DAO. And I know everyone at every DAO almost, and I get to have conversations with them where they say things in private Telegram chats that they would never say on Twitter, and they would never say in groups for fear of becoming pariahs within the crypto community, because I guess to a lot of people, nothing could be worse than being disliked on Twitter. I'm going to speak as an American citizen here. Personal finances and taxes completely suck. The reality of working in it now is if you're an American citizen, you're very likely to be targeted by the IRS within a couple of years if you're not already. I already have friends who were filing their taxes incorrectly because there are just a bunch of young people who were getting paid in the middle of the bull market. They had no idea what they were doing. They weren't taking accounting the right way. They didn't have accountants. They didn't have corporations set up. They didn't do any of these things. They didn't know that they had to pay taxes in the ways that they needed to. It doesn't help that every accountant you talk to in the US gives you a different description of how you should be paying your taxes. And so basically everyone ended up doing them wrong. And I already have friends who owe back taxes of 6 figures to the IRS in a way that has completely obliterated them. And they were people that were in 2021, 2022 earning $400,000 a year. And because they did everything completely incorrectly, they're going to be in debt to the IRS for years to come. Governance. I know the Tally folks are in here, so this might be unpopular to say, but governance sucks. Voter apathy is just one of the places we can talk about things, but we can have really honest conversations about how we say that there's decentralized governance everywhere, when in reality it's a handful of centralized whales who are giving tokens to the people that they like. I'm one of those people. I'm the highest delegated token holder at Gitcoin DAO. there's a lot of conflict of interest in the fact that I will be able to vote yes on things that benefit me, while we need to decentralize over time. And I do my best not to use my delegated power for nefarious purposes. We can't assume that everyone isn't going to. And so, this is something that I don't know how it gets fixed, within the United States. Voting sucks everywhere I look. Voting sucks. People don't care until something starts affecting them, at which point it's too late, which we've seen many times. How we end up doing this in a way where we have a more educated set of people who are voting on things, and we make voting become more fair and not something where it's behind the scenes making things happen. I end up having to talk to a bunch of people at DAOs to be able to raise money for the Gitcoin grants program. Every time I have to do that, I basically know who I need to talk to at each of the DAOs because they're the whales. And then there's also the social effect that once you know those few people, that everyone else is just going to lead in terms of voting exactly the way that those people higher up in the social hierarchy already do. And so is that really centralized when I know the 2 to 5 people I need to message at every single DAO? Hiring and talent. We have no recruiting agencies that work well. I think it is amazing that anyone can enter a DAO, but what we end up finding is that tons of people have no idea how to do the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. Many people were able to get into this space and get roles that they don't technically deserve if they had to see what their counterparts were from the Web 2 or other worlds. What this leads to is a bunch of people in really high positions who are completely inept. Exactly, right? You guys have all experienced this. Web 2 people are slowly onboarding, but it's a difficult thing to get them to understand what it even means to, this is the difference between Snapshot and Tally, right? What are you guys talking about? I know how to do marketing, I know how to do PR. And so figuring out how to bring Web 2 people on board, especially when we're all mostly known for selling JPEGs or funding Hamas, according to mainstream media. And then other than that, we have people who are really young that are coming out of college at 19, 20, 21, 22, who don't know that you're supposed to answer emails on time. So those are the people that have been really on Twitter, and because they have a big Twitter following, we end up wanting to hire them, and then you get them, and they're not good at what they do. This goes back to a little bit what I was saying is in terms of organizational principles, we think that corporations are completely evil and we need to do away with absolutely every single thing that corporations invented. And what we end up finding is that we actually need a lot of it. Does decentralized governance work in ways? Absolutely. But there are many reasons in which you need to be able to have hierarchy when making so many decisions. As I can tell you from someone at Gitcoin, trying to create consensus way too often when you're dealing with people who don't have context about the situation, but have the ability to try to direct which way the decision's going to go, just ends up creating massive inefficiencies. And so if your goal is to be able to try to figure out how to grow, it doesn't end up working very well. Communication. I want anyone here to tell me if they work in crypto and are not absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of notifications that they get on a daily basis. Between all of these things, Telegram bothers me the most because even if you pay for Telegram Premium, you can only do up to 20 folders with 200 chats per folder. I feel like that should be a lot, but it's not for me. I have a work chat where I put individuals into it, and I'm on the 5th folder of that, and I've had to start reorganizing folders just because there's no right way for me to do it. There's 3RM, which is a Telegram CRM that's coming out and has been improving, but at all times of day, when I look at my iPhone, on average, I deal with somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 notifications a day. You have no time to actually do work if you're just sending messages all day long. And most of us hate email for whatever reason, although I'm starting to see people at more mature crypto orgs be no, I need you to do this on email for me. But yeah, Discord I won't even get into. I've just left everything and muted everything, right? That became unbearable in 2021, never mind 2023. Legal and compliance. Again, speaking to the United States, there's lack of legal precedence for almost anything. With being a DAO contributor, there are conversations around if you're part of a multi-sig or if you're voting on things, you could be held liable. We did a big deal with Shell Oil earlier this year that was quite contentious for many people. And there was points at which I thought Shell was quite upset at us, and when we were going through that, I realized that I did not have the protections of being part of an LLC, and so if Shell wanted, they would be able to use their Fortune 10 bank account to personally sue me. That's not a situation that like we can be in if we want this industry to end up thriving. Regular DAO contributor protections. A 1099 is basically just being a contractor within the United States, and a W-2 is being a full-time employee in a way in which you get benefits. So I'm a full-time employee of Gitcoin. There's not a single piece of paperwork anywhere that says I'm a full-time employee of Gitcoin, and there's nothing that would be recognized by the US government for this. So I get all of the downsides of being a 1099 without any of the upsides of being a W-2. Again, like Carta, like, you know, who's getting tokens that are vested over time as employees as you would if you're someone who's like working in a startup. It's not everyone. There are products to do it, but it's not like it's completely normal. How do you take maternity or paternity leave the right way when like every month in crypto is a year in any other industry? And so if you're supposed to take 3 to 6 months off for maternity or paternity leave, you literally walked into an industry where like you don't recognize anything anymore. And so it's just some of these things. How do you take proper sick days? Like I take sick days at Bitcoin all the time, but it's just because I message in a channel called Team Availability that I won't be there. That's not how this can work, right? So I know I completely shitted on DAOs this whole time. That is the sentiment I hold. With that said, I love them. I do believe that they have the ability to be part of the future of work, not the entirety of the future of work, but to be able to have a digitally native LLC where you're able to spin something up, figure out a bunch of people that you want to work towards a common goal with, and then be able to pay them in a frictionless way, especially as we continue to create more on-ramping across the globe, is something that really does offer endless potential. But I think all of us need to be a lot more honest in our conversations publicly and privately about the things that we need to do so that we start being able to be taken seriously by the grown-ups who like do run real companies, and we stop just saying, this has so much potential, this has so much potential. Like, let's start showing that potential. If you want to get in touch with me, these are the best ways to do so. My Twitter DMs are open, Telegram, email. I'd love to hear from anyone. Thank you very much.